Hello, and welcome to a special Canada Day edition of the Great Canadian Tour. I'm Glen McInnis. Well, coming up on the show, we take you to Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, where an accidental discovery from the past has opened new doors to the future. We also take you to Ottawa and show you the history of Parliament Hill. Well, right now, I'm in Petty Harbour just outside of St. John's, and it's here in Newfoundland and Labrador where we begin. Well, Canada Day is a day of celebration right across the country, and that's no different here. But in Newfoundland and Labrador, July 1st has another meaning. It commemorates the Battle of Beaumont-Hamel during the Battle of the Somme in World War I. It's the most significant day of military action Newfoundland has ever seen, and it's been called the bloodiest day in the province's history. So, as we celebrate our nation's birthday, we also stop to reflect on the brave men from the Royal Newfoundland Regiment who paid the ultimate price for freedom.
July 1st, 1916 is etched into the Newfoundland psyche. There was hardly a home on the island that was unaffected by the carnage of that day, and over 90 years later, that still resonates. One historian has noted that no other unit which fought in the First World War was so identified with the community that raised it. The loss was imprinted in the Newfoundland history and culture.
In August 1914, Canada was at war. The population of Newfoundland at that time was 240,000, and of that, 12,000 men enlisted to fight. The 1st Newfoundland Regiment was quickly formed and hastily trained. It became a unit of the British Army. They would become known as the Blue Puttees because of the color of the lower leggings on their uniforms.
At the time of the outbreak of the First World War, Newfoundland was a self-governing dominion of the British Empire. The people of Newfoundland responded with a great outpouring of patriotism. Over a third of all males between the ages of 19 and 35 enlisted. Recruits came in from all over the island. Some came from remote villages. Some had never even attended a school. Boyfriends, husbands, fathers, and sons marched off to the Great War. Men from every occupation, fishermen, sailors, school teachers, lumbermen, office workers, and many others. Enough men had volunteered that a whole battalion was formed. They were proud members of their very own regiment, the Newfoundland Regiment. And it's been said they were never without the spirit and humor of their homeland. The Battle of the Somme, July 1st, 1916. The plan was to break the German defenses and clear a path for the cavalry through the English Channel. But it all went horribly wrong. The result was a slaughter. 57,500 British soldiers killed, wounded, or missing in one day. The heaviest day's combat losses ever suffered by the British Army. The battle has come to epitomize the futility of trench warfare. It lasted until November, and it did not bring a swift conclusion to the war. Aubrey Halfyard is the chair of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment Museum. He tells the story of the regiment's involvement at the Battle of the Somme.
Newfoundlanders' share of it came at early that morning on the 1st of July on a bright sunny morning, and they were sent essentially to their death by their senior officers who really didn't understand what modern warfare was all about and the damage that machine guns could do.
Corporal Anthony McAllister is a serving member of the 1st Battalion Royal Newfoundland Regiment. He explains what happened that fateful day.
The Newfoundlanders were the 3rd line to go over. They were the reserve line. There was so much carnage that had gone in the first 2 lines, the other 4 regiments that went before them. They could not get to the trenches because of the dead blocking the trenches and the stretcher bearers trying to bring the wounded back. So what they had to do, they had to actually get up from the reserve position and go forward towards the German lines, completely exposed. They could not travel by way of the communication trenches and have the relative safety of those trenches. So they were basically sitting ducks.
800 Newfoundlanders rose from the British trenches at Beaumont-Hamel in France and advanced straight into the German line of fire. By the time the battle was over 700 of them were dead or wounded. The 1st Newfoundland Regiment had been annihilated in just over an hour. The famous Newfoundland and Canadian poet E.J. Pratt wrote, "It took the war an hour one day to carve a wound of agony and sorrow in the heart and soul of a people." Private F.H. Cameron, 1st King's Own Scottish borderers, saw them die. He wrote, "On came the Newfoundlanders, a great body of men, but the fire intensified and they were wiped out in front of my eyes. I cursed the generals for their useless slaughter. They seemed to have no idea what was going on." Back home in Newfoundland, news of the tragedy arrived on July 13th, nearly 2 weeks after the battle. Almost every family on the island had been touched by the losses. Almost a generation of Newfoundland's potential leaders was lost. Dr. David Parsons is an expert on the Royal Newfoundland Regiment. He believes Newfoundland's best and brightest were lost.
Well, I think there were so many people lost that they say some of the best people might have been killed, because it was usually the more active people in the community who would want to go off to the excitement of war as it was then. And therefore they were lost to the future of Newfoundland.
In recognition of the regiment's battlefield contributions, King George V granted the addition of the title Royal to its name.
The regiment did indeed fold or disband after the war in the early 20s. However, again, it was reformed again in 1949 under the terms of union when our province became part of Canada, and it has been here ever since, and hopefully will be.
Shortly after the war, with the help of funds raised by the women of the Dominion, the Newfoundland government bought the land in which the 1st Newfoundland Regiment made their heroic advance. On the first anniversary, people gathered there to remember the courage of the men who died, and it continues to this day.
On June 7, 1925, the Beaumont-Hamel Memorial Park was officially opened by Earl Haig. At this site stands the Great Bronze Caribou, the emblem of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, which overlooks the site. July 1st has become a day of mixed emotions for Newfoundlanders.
On July the 1st in the morning, we put our uniforms on and we raised the Union Jack, which was our flag at that point in time, and we wear our forget-me-nots, which is the Remembrance Day flower, and we sing the Ode to Newfoundland, and we pay homage to our fallen comrades. In the afternoon, which is a little bit of a different story, we sing O Canada, and we salute the Canadian flag. And it's, yeah, I guess we're born Newfoundlanders, but we're also proud Canadians, and one really strengthens the other. That's the way we look at it.
And over 90 years later, the words written by one British poet still ring true. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
What do you think was the most memorable moment in Canadian history?
The Battle of Vimy Ridge, which sealed us away from the old empire and made us our own country.
I guess probably Confederation, when they all joined together, it was a good thing.
Probably Confederation.
I suppose Confederation, when the provinces joined. And when they built the causeway from Nova Scotia to Cape Breton.
Well, I'd have to say Confederation.
When it all began.
When it all began.
The day Newfoundland joined Confederation.
Probably the British North America Act, giving the kind of constitutional basis of it. But as a proud Newfoundlander, I would say the day Canada joined Newfoundland.
Well, for us in Newfoundland, I think joining Confederation. You know, we were a country, of course, as you know, before then, and for us at least, joining 1949.
Tumbler Ridge BC is a small town nestled in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. It was established in the early 80s after coal deposits were discovered here. But when the price of coal dropped, Tumbler Ridge was caught in the crossfire. But worry not, because this is a story of how something in the past opened new doors to the future.
Tumbler Ridge is a young town. 30 years ago, nothing existed here. It was wilderness. In 1981, the town was created by the provincial government to service the coal industry. It evolved in a short period, and at the height of construction, 10,000 people called Tumbler Ridge home. It was booming. The town's mayor, Mike Casely, says coal is what created Tumbler Ridge.
Coal prices were high. Things were looking very, very good. The resource industry was doing very well. And so we had a good number of years that people came in from all over, basically all over the world, certainly all throughout Canada and so forth. And it was a young community. It was people coming into a startup situation and so forth. So we had what we call quads, and we had trailer courts set up and so forth until the major construction was done, as well as the building of all of the homes that you see here, which was also part of that transition. And as coal prices stayed steady and so forth, we had some very, very good economic times.
But in the late 90s, the resource industry took a dive. Difficult economic times lay ahead, but the town survived.
We've basically been in existence for about 26 years now. We celebrated last year our 25th anniversary.
Congratulations.
And thank you very much. So we're excited about it, and we've had certainly our ups and downs with regards to the resource, the economy.
And in that time, Tumbler Ridge has seen an industry rise and fall. Low employment prospects threatened to end this place as quickly as it began. But something else was about to put Tumbler Ridge on the map, thanks to the accidental discovery of two young men.
In 2000, Daniel Helm and his friend Mark Turner set out one day to do some tubing in nearby Flatbed Creek. While making their way back up the river on foot, they stumbled upon something that would change the future of Tumbler Ridge.
So Daniel, this is the spot where it all happened at first. I want you to tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so my friend, he fell off the tube like right here, and then after he was safe.
So you were tubing with your friend down the river, is that what was going on?
Yeah, we were tubing down the river, and then he fell off, and so he helped me to that shore over there. And as we're walking back up, we saw these holes in the rock, and being kids, the first thing that popped to our minds was that they were dinosaur footprints.
Right, okay, and what did you do as soon as you saw them? I mean, you went back into town, who did you tell?
Well, we told my dad. He was actually here with us that day, and he came, took a look at them, and he ruled it out. He said, those can't be footprints, because kids don't find dinosaur tracks. And then, we said, no, but we actually did find something, just look at it. And so it took a bit of convincing, but in the end, we half convinced him. So.
Wow. So what do you think of it all? I mean, this is kind of, I mean, you've got people like me coming out to visit you, you've had other people talk to you. I mean, what do you think of all this attention?
Well, I don't really know what to make of it. It is something that happened by chance, but I guess it's kind of neat to see meet all these people from all over coming to see it, especially in the summertime. I was working in the museum last summer, and people came from all over, Australia and the States, just to come, or they came to Tumbler Ridge.
Since their discovery, tourism has risen by 500%. Dinosaur fever gripped the town. The search for dinosaur material intensified. Numerous footprints were discovered and recovered. Over 300 dinosaur bones have been found. Rich McCrae was the first paleontologist to visit Tumbler Ridge in 2000. He has led numerous excavations and is Canada's leading expert on fossil footprints. He has been instrumental in forming the Dinosaur Discovery Gallery and the Paleontology Research Center. It's the first of its kind in the province and enables McCrae and his team to study the findings right here in Tumbler Ridge.
So Rich, this is where you keep all your examples, specimens that you found. One of the reasons you're moving because you don't have enough room.
Yeah, right? We've been a little too successful with our field projects.
Yeah, okay. What do we have here? What are we kind of looking at here?
Well, we have a variety of specimens that are too big to fit into our specimen cabinet, so they're on racking, but we have a number of dinosaur footprints, and most of those are along the bottom. Middle, we have other footprint slabs, and then dinosaur bones over there that are waiting to be prepped.
That's incredible. I see a little bit of a different coloration in here.
Yeah, that's the bone. That's and it's a not so little bone either. That's partially exposed.
I can look at this and I can tell that's a bone. That's incredible.
That's right. That's a practice piece. We find fragments like that and we use them for to test our equipment and get our skills up.
Lisa Buckley was born in British Columbia. She was part of the province's first dinosaur dig.
So Lisa, you're a paleontologist here in Tumbler Ridge. Right. Okay, so first thing I'm going to ask you is what specific dinosaurs walked through here and how long ago?
Well, the site that we're standing at right now is roughly about 95 to 97 million years old, so in the early part of the late Cretaceous. And the dinosaurs that we're walking through here were ankylosaurs, so the large armored dinosaurs. Everyone knows them from the bone on the bone club on the end of the tail. Yeah. And those were four-footed animals. They were plant eaters. And those seem to be the most common dinosaurs that we find walking through this age of rocks. But we also get the smaller meat-eating dinosaurs, which have nice 3 sharp toes. They were bipeds, really fast, really wicked. And then we also have the larger bipedal plant-eating dinosaurs called ornithopods, so very similar to duckbill dinosaurs.
So at a time around here, bears weren't your biggest worry?
Oh, no. Your biggest worry was definitely the meat-eating dinosaurs.
Right, indeed. Now, I'm noticing right down here, we have a track, so we're going to just get down here and take a look at it up close.
Definitely a footprint.
Okay, so this is a footprint of what? As you can see, 3
nice 3 long, sharp, pointy toes. I can give it an outline in chalk here.
Sure.
Very rough outline, though.
Yeah.
The surface is very damaged, very eroded, so the print isn't as clear as it could be, but this is roughly the outline that we're looking at right here.
Incredible.
And then the heel would come off around here.
That's a big foot.
Yeah, this would be from a medium-sized meat-eating dinosaur. What we're looking at here are the 3 weight-bearing digits. Meat-eating dinosaurs walked on their toes like birds do, and they're actually very closely, well, they're the ancestors of birds.
We were looking over there. There's some fresh bird tracks in the mud right behind me over here, and it's this.
Pretty much the same design. It hasn't changed much at all. But this animal, when it was walking, this sediment must have been really, really wet, because as the animal sunk in, the foot depressed into the mud deep enough to get its dew claw, or its first digit. So we have digit 1, which would be the inner digit, 2, 3, and 4. So we can tell this was a left foot.
Interesting. Now, how long ago did you say this was?
About 95 to 97 million years old.
Really?
The town of Tumbler Ridge has embraced these findings, but McCrae says more funding is needed to put this paleontological center on the world map.
We have very strong municipal support. We're hoping to get provincial support, a larger buy-in. This is a provincial responsibility. Has been handled on a municipal level thus far. We're looking at regional support as well, and federal would definitely be nice. What we're looking to do is build a purpose-built facility here. Museum with a large gallery that can attract tourists, but from what we've shown you today, the collections area and the research area, that's the foundation for the whole, for everything, for what you could put on display in the gallery, for what you present for educational programs, for what you present for tours. Tourism's all linked with the research. If you don't have that, all you have is some interesting, rocks that have bumps on them, and without really being able to know what they are or anything else about them. And that's one of our goals, is to hire more researchers and really make this a center of paleontological excellence in the world.
And it's not only funding that's needed. McCrae and Buckley are working hard to ensure the British Columbia government introduces legislation to protect these prehistoric findings.
Now, you mentioned something to me earlier. Now, there are other examples of footprints around here. Some are under the water.
Yes, yeah.
Of course, and we can't do anything about
that
because
can't see those yet.
That time of year. But there are other ones that are around here that are that have suffered some damage, and we're not talking from Mother Nature.
No, we're talking from people's ignorance, really.
Right. So what would you now, in terms of the governments, provincial or even federal, you have an idea to do something about this, and what would that be?
Well, what we would like to do first off is for BC to have some sort of provincial legislation protecting and managing its fossil resources. BC is the only province in Canada that doesn't have any sort of government legislation to manage its fossil heritage. Every other province in the country and territory does have some sort of management framework set out. BC is the only one that doesn't at this stage, and right now me and the other paleontologist, Rich McCrae, are working to provide feedback for the development of this legislation.
Since the discovery, Mayor Casely says his town is no longer a place on the brink of extinction.
The future at the moment certainly looks very, 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 very positive.
So it just goes to show that you never know for sure what you might find underneath your feet. And for Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, footprints from the past have led the way to a brighter future.
What makes your part of Canada so unique?
Well, it's the hub of everything, politics especially. Enjoy that, and it's a beautiful city.
Well, first of all, I'd say the Parliament buildings. I'm living downtown, and Ottawa is, as far as I'm concerned, not too big. It's a great place to raise a family. It's still fairly safe. We just had a presentation a week ago on how safe it is really in Ottawa. So overall, yeah, I think Ottawa is a great place to stay.
I was born and raised in Ottawa. We're the capital. We're the most patriotic city in the country. The Prime Minister lives here. That could be a downfall, but
I would probably have to say the diversity of the people here, most definitely.
Culturally?
Culturally, it is a very diverse place, yes.
I guess just the activity that's going on up here now. Yep.
Yeah, all the work, all the people flocking in and stuff.
Yeah, it's growing real quick.
All the people from Newfoundland.
People are friendly, and everyone is your neighbor.
I think it's the whole culture is tied up with the language, which I find absolutely wonderful. I've only ever heard languages colorful in Australia myself. Yeah. And also just the fact of our isolation for so many centuries, and the culture really developed here, and it's quite distinct. Just everything, the land, everything, it just makes it feel different.
Well, hello from Ottawa. Well, it's one of Canada's most enduring symbols and one of our most important landmarks. It's the host of major events and attracts approximately 3 million people every year. It's the home of the heart of Canada's democratic system. The laws made here affect the lives of every Canadian citizen, and the decisions made shape the future of this country. I'm talking, of course, about Parliament Hill. And this is the story of how it was built.
The collection of buildings that form Parliament Hill have been regarded as the finest Gothic revival complex in the world, and the most beautiful. It's been said that the buildings of Parliament Hill are the keynote of our national being, expressing our intellectual and political ideas. They define Canadians' unique identity and style. The entire parliamentary precinct measures over 112,000 square meters. It consists of 3 main blocks. Where the Peace Tower is located is the center block. Inside it contains the House of Commons and Senate chambers, the Library of Parliament, and the Memorial Chamber. The East Block contains senators' offices and historic Confederation-era rooms. And the West Block contains ministers' and MPs' offices and meeting rooms.
In February of 1858, Queen Victoria named Ottawa the capital. At the time, Ottawa was considered a muddy shanty town, and Canada's first Governor-General once wrote that he was disgusted with the squalor of the city. But after much debate, it was confirmed that Ottawa would be the center of Canada, and many people at the time referred to it as Westminster in the wilderness.
A year later, construction of the new Parliament buildings began at Old Barrack Hill. Many saw it as the perfect spot. Acres of land nestled in the center of town with magnificent views of the Ottawa River. The new Parliament building would be visible for miles.
A group of radical young artists were commissioned. Their architecture was influenced by the flamboyant and decorative designs found in Italy and France, and their Gothic designs were much more daring than the English Gothic found at Westminster. Never before had a project of this scale been done in North America. The first stones were laid in April of 1960, but controversy followed. The contractors were in such a hurry to get the job done that a proper survey wasn't done on the site. Architects had to change their design, and in the following year, Public Works announced that the cost of completing the project had doubled. There was no money to complete the Parliament buildings.
The site was closed down. Tarpaulins covered the unfinished walls. Over 1,000 men were thrown out of work. The government launched a formal inquiry. 2 years later, in 1863, the commission filed their reports. It criticized the conduct of all the architects involved, but recommended that for the sake of continuity, not all of them be dismissed. New contractors were signed. The government provided additional funds. Construction was resumed. The Parliament buildings were not completed when in November 1867, the first Parliament of the Dominion of Canada met in Ottawa. As the country grew, more offices were needed. The construction schedule was accelerated. It was a tough challenge for the masons and stone carvers. The work had to be of a better class than the specifications called for. No stone would be admitted into the work unless it was dressed on the face as well as the beds and joints, wrote one masonry contractor. In 1876, 16 years after building first began, Parliament Hill was completed. Of the Parliament buildings, English novelist Anthony Trollope once wrote, "I know of no modern Gothic, purer of its kind, or less sullied with fictitious ornamentation, and I know no site for such a set of buildings so happy as regards both beauty and grandeur. The buildings stand nobly on a magnificent river, with high overhanging rock and a natural grandeur of position." Most agreed. The groups of buildings were the finest examples of Gothic revival architecture. Parliament Hill had transformed Ottawa into what Mackenzie King called the most beautiful capital city in the world. But tragedy hit. On February 3, 1916, the headlines read, "Fire destroys Canada's Parliament buildings. The most picturesque public building in North America is a shapeless ruin. 7 people were killed. It was a great national tragedy. It took all night to put the fire out. Centre Block was destroyed. Only the library survived."
Canada was at war at the time, and it was immediately thought that this was the work of the enemy. It was speculated that a spy deliberately lit the fire. But it wasn't. It was actually lit by a smoldering cigar left in a wastepaper basket. Parliament badly needed a new place to meet.
2 days later, the Victoria Museum building became the temporary home of both Houses of Parliament. It remained so for the next 4 years. It was decided that the Centre Block would be completely rebuilt. Public Works wanted the design to look as much like the old building as possible. On February 26, 1920, Parliament sat in the newly built Centre Block. One newspaper called it an historical event. The building wasn't finally completed until 1922.
On July 1st, 1927, Canada celebrated its Diamond Jubilee. Over 50,000 people celebrated on Parliament Hill, and the main attraction in the program that day was the dedication of the new Victory Tower. The Prime Minister at the time, William Lyon Mackenzie King, wanted a fitting memorial for the soldiers who died in World War I. Today, we know it, of course, as the Peace Tower. And now, more than 80 years later, Parliament Hill still manages to be the center of attention.